messages which are the equivalent of the inoculation or antidote, because that will have far more effect than once someone has sent it out, then otherwise I don't really care. So that's basically it. The conclusion is, clearly I talked about the impact of new instrumentation on science. And it's only the last part, that is, massive adoption is fundamentally changing social science research. And of course, all these environments are like a microscope of human behavior. And this is sort of the summary, the big picture. There are many converging trends. A rapid increase of usage of internet and the web, increase the resolution deployment of all these data collection probes, dramatic increase in research capacity, advancement in computational methods, becoming possible to really understand individual and group behavior at very fine granularity. And privacy, of course, is very important. We will go there. That would be an entirely different talk. But average people don't even know to care, enough to care. People don't understand the implications of privacy and all this stuff, privacy violation. And it needs serious consciousness raising. And I would also say about this whole area that there's a great opportunity for basic research, applied research, as well as entrepreneurship, right? And hopefully I illustrated some elements of all of those. But what is important is putting together the right team and partnership is very critical in any of these endeavors to succeed. You need the data, you need whatever else you need. Well, thank you again for the opportunity.
I now request Dr. Tanmay to present a token of thanks to Dr. Jaideep.
Also, are there any questions?
Yeah, so any question, please? Yeah. Although is there around in the till 5, 6
Yeah, we can around all day. Yeah, any questions? Yes.
Quantify the influence of the delta which A has on B.
Right.
How is that quantified? I mean,
Okay. Right. So,
and that too, sometimes the relationships are not very explicit.
yes. Yeah. So this actually is one of those interesting things. I'll wax a little philosophical here. See, unlike the physical sciences, most things in social sciences are unmeasurable. Like we have IQ measures, we have grade scores. What do they actually measure? Right? I could take the entire IQ system and scale it down by a factor of 10. It's only the relative score that matter, right? So that's the first point. I mean, in physics we have, in physical sciences, in physics we have, length you can measure, mass you can measure, and time you can measure, right? LMT, everything is based on that. In social sciences there really are no actual measures. Okay, so that's one important point. So none of these measures mean anything in a general sense, in the physics sense. So then what are they? They really are useful for their relative magnitude and the ordering they provide. Okay, who can you trust more, who can you trust less? Then how do you validate? So you validate them with some other metrics of something which is useful, like the amount of money spent and the time spent. Those you can measure. So whenever you say that, okay, I'm going to predict something, some kind of a social value, a social influence, some measure of that, but if it correlates well with a metric I care about, then I'll say this makes sense. Just the way credit scores have been validated, right? So that's the only point I can make about this. And there are certain things you can observe, like social interaction can be observed. You can say, well, how much time did you spend with this person? How many times? What all the kind of activities it is? But trust is image. I mean, there's no thermometer that you can apply to that, right? So things like that. Yeah. That's why even in those hypotheses that those feedback loop, I said, well, one is observable, socialization. One is hidden. So the hidden one we will only infer, but this one we can measure. Yeah. Good question, sir. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
So are the trustingness and trustworthiness are functions of time?
Yes.
And did your model account for that as you did your study over an extended period of time? Because a person's trustingness will change with time.
Right. So actually, the other things we have done in this particular thing, that study or the thing that I presented to you was not really over time. What it said was that I'm going to measure social interaction because all we were studying over there, the one I presented was how much social interaction leads to the time a trust being formed. Okay, we have observed that trustworthiness and trustiness do change over time because after all these are structural properties, right? And then the structure of the thing will change. But they were changing at a very slow rate. And usually what we found was that people, when they enter the system, they build up to a certain point, there is some, if you look at just the number of edges that are connected to them, they go through certain kind of phases, and then it plateaus out after a while. And again, the thing is that people have reached a certain stable social setup. That means it's like this: you move to a new neighborhood. Initially, you try to form many friends, a new organization. After a while, you know which ones you get along with, who has time for you, who you want to spend time with, and then things stabilize. But you're right, over a longer period of time, you should study this.
So what is the main factor you decided to trust?
Oh, so what we're saying is that trust, okay, so both of these measures, trustworthiness and trustingness, are again those unobservable scores. We can't measure them. These are the scores we are giving to people to capture inherent property. So trustingness is someone's degree of how much they happen to trust others. And remember, I mean, again, psychologists will say these are the kind of factors that depend a lot on your childhood, for example. If you're in a very warm, loving environment where you trusted people and things turned out well for you, in general you'll be more trusting. Versus if you were in an environment where it was difficult for you to trust others, you'll grow up to be a non-trusting person, right? So it's kind of a measure of something like that. While trustworthiness is how do you project? How does the world see you? Right? Are you seen as a trustworthy person or not? Now, of course, are you really trustworthy? That's an entirely different issue. There are a number of people who have projected themselves as being very trustworthy, but in reality they are not. In fact, you could even say that these two metrics, someone could be very high on trustworthiness, but very low on trustingness. That means they are trusted by lots of people, but they inherently don't trust anyone, or they trust very few people. So these two metrics are not even positively correlated.
So, this metric is similar to the computation of finding social influence, like the number of people spending time and money, including like A and B if we consider. So A is spending more time with B, and A is influenced by B's spending or these other attributes that you study. So that is same as influence computation. So
So the point is that, okay, right. Okay, so they are highly correlated, not exactly the same. So trustworthiness and trustingness are sort of social psychological properties who are immeasurable. They cannot be measured directly. So we are just giving them some scores. On the other hand, spend is measurable. So when we're talking about social value, that is directly measurable. How much time someone calls others to spend, right? So what we found was, though, that these immeasurable quantities to whom we had given these scores, they were highly correlated with these. So if you did some computation over here and came up with something over here, right, some numbers, and you could figure out how correlated they were, and based on those you could build predictive models for the spend, then you have a model that can actually be useful. So they're not the same, but in general they're highly correlated, yes, in the ways that I showed you. These are great questions, by the way. Okay.
So,
Yes.
So, have you seen like whether its trustworthiness and believability can be used to model network development? So, for example, say if you use standard Barbour-Shiller model or old models, so they have their own properties. And if you use these kind of metrics to form a network, any structural properties that you can observe which is different from the existing models?
That's a very good question. We haven't done that, but I actually believe that yes, it should be done, and again, this is a tall claim without, Baravasi's work is very well known. So the point is that I think that one of the things that is fundamentally missing from Baravasi and that kind of work is that they are not taking the human factors, the human social factors into account at all. Because look at Baravasi's claim, he's saying, well, networks in biology and physics and social sciences, they should all be the same. And that's not even true, even structurally. So I think that if one comes up with generative models of the kind, because even if you take preferential attachment, which is generative model for Varanasi style networks, it assumes that there is no concept of social bandwidth, right? That means the number of in-links someone can support is limited. But in socialization, that is important, because what happens is that if someone, if I form a friendship with someone who's already very busy, after a while what will happen is that they won't give me attention, and then I will stop interacting with them, right? So given all these factors, if we take models like this and then build generative models, we will find networks that are more realistic, at least social networks. I actually believe in that. And that's a great area of work, yes.
The last question.
Thank you for your talk, sir. It was really enlightening. So my question is, have there been studies conducted to relate trustworthiness, and misinformation spread over a period of time? For example, like we talked about this in more personal sense, but in tangible things like journals or newspaper houses or the journalism field and in its own self, we see like the Wire or the Quint, they were earlier considered as a more, unbiased journals. But over the period of time, we can clearly see that they are very biased, and hence our trustiness in those journals to be unbiased has slightly reduced over the period of time. So have there been studies conducted to relate these
Okay.
factors?
No. Okay. So applying all these models to the field of misinformation spread is something that we have started only recently. So these are all open questions. Great question. These are open questions yet. However, there's another kind of, I don't know, I'll call it positive or negative. We have studied this a lot in the area of viral advertising. Okay. Now, I don't know, that's a, you use, I mean, the same thing can be used in viral advertising, right? Over there, we have actually seen and validated many of these models, and we have a whole series, we work a lot with people in the School of Journalism and Communication, and we have a bunch of journal papers in that area as well as conference papers. If anyone is interested, I can tell you more. I did not talk about that example here, but in the field of misinformation, we haven't studied this to the same degree. Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm still going to be around the whole day, so absolutely.
Our next speaker is Dr. Sanjay Kumar Madria. He is the Curator's Distinguished Professor in the Department of Computer Science at Missouri University of Science and Technology. He received his PhD in Computer Science from IIT Delhi and published over 250 journal and conference papers in the area of mobile sensor computing, cloud, and cybersecurity. Today, he'll be talking about a deep learning approach for tweet classification and rescue scheduling for effective disaster management. I invite Dr. Madria for his talk.
Good morning. So it's good to see so many people here. I just landed at 3 a.m. from US, and it's worth to be here after all of the delays in US. Great talk by Jaideep, and the talk which I'm giving is about
trying to solve a very important and a simple problem. And as you can see, the title is about disaster management. Let me just briefly give you a quick summary. In US, there is an agency called FEMA, who is responsible for disaster management. And the biggest problem they have is how they can get the information in real time and try to schedule, for example, approaching people and how to evacuate them. So this is a project funded by NSF, and paper based on this has appeared this last year in ACSS Spatial. So as you see the outline here, motivation, challenges, contribution, and experimental results. And if you see demonstration of disaster scenario, so currently I'm building a system, and the system is going to be demonstrated to FEMA and also the governor's council in Missouri. And my student actually just sent me a link, and I can show you the system if you are interested after the talk or maybe later on. So let me just quickly give you the outline. These are the real tweets which people have tweeted during disasters in US. So if you can see here, water rising quick, please help as soon as possible. There's some address given, right? It's 11:41 p.m. 29th August of 2017. Houston flood, please help my friend. There's some address, another tweet. Now, these are the tweets from people, not necessarily they are affected, but they know that some of their relatives or friends are affected by these disasters. On the other side, you see that also the agency who is responsible for evacuating and helping them also responding. You see that? Dayton Beach Fire Department were able to rescue a friend and they have some information. So people try to seek help during these disasters using tweets, okay? And of course other social media. The idea is how we can identify relevant information from these tweets and try to help people who are stranded in those disasters. So as you can see here, that social media can provide really the real-time information because those people are there, they're stuck in those disasters. So if you can see that here, standing at the bottom of a tree, hurricane FEMA, and there's some information, there's a location information, there's a time information. So what are the challenges? The challenges are how we can process these tweets in real time, right? If the information is delayed, then it's not really worked. Identifying relevant tweets. Now, what are these relevant tweets means? As I mentioned, FEMA in US, the agency, they have defined certain categories, and whenever there is a disaster, they have to evacuate first one of those people. What are those categories? What they call DCW. Disabled, elderly, child, woman. After that, sick. You know that the most important thing people ask for during disaster? What is the most important thing people ask? Water. Right? Because water is generally contaminated, not available. So, determining the priorities. So, the idea of this work is that from those tweets can be identified and categorized into those FEMA categories. That's what FEMA is looking for. Right? That there are a lot of information, can be categorized exactly those. Then, once we categorize, estimating the location. Now that's the most difficult problem. Some of the tweets, they do have location information given, but not in all the tweets, right? People are just sending some information. So how we can get the correct or approximate location? That's a real challenging problem. And after we get the information, how to organize these rescue stations. Okay? So there are some related works, of course, in this direction, and since time is very short, I'll just give you a very overview of this work. So there are papers which talk about, that how we can get some textual information and some content formation. Of course, I'm also talking about all these, and I have the data from 17 real disasters. Again, this is what I have used in my work. They have tried to do the topic modeling, of course, from the tweets, and they try to assess the damage. Okay? So their objective is a little different. And they're trying to see how much damages have happened to the infrastructure, for example. So what they have not done is they have not tried to identify the tweets and try to categorize them. Okay? So what they try to do is try to find if there are volunteers from those tweets, the donation people are trying to give, trying to see some personal updates, trying to find affected people, and so on. Okay? And of course, there's nothing about how to locate them or how to find the real location of those tweets. So I'll just quickly go over this one system. As you can see, they have a textual content, they have imagery content. At the end, from images, what you're doing? Damage assessment. Okay? They're trying to see how much damage have happened to the infrastructure, and from textual, they're trying to find the topic. Okay, they're doing topic modeling. So if you see the Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, they have done like how many tweets are relevant about the infrastructure damages, how many are unique tweets, how many are the tweets which are about the damages, okay, the real tweets regarding the damages. And what they've done, from that they have identified the distribution about severe, mild, and none about the damages, right? So they said that so many tweets are about 80%, there are nothing about the damages, some mild information, and then some about the severe information they could get about the damage in infrastructure. And then same thing here, the Harvey flood. Here the goal is they're trying to connect from the tweets. You remember the victims are also tweeting, friends are tweeting, and also the volunteers. And they're trying to relate victims with volunteers, okay, using the SVM model. So of course there's nothing about how to find the priorities which I mentioned about the FEMA. There's nothing about how to schedule, these rescue operations, what are the resources, how they can use the resources, how to identify the locations. Also, the proposed classification model is binary, which can only find a tweet which is seeking a help or not. Okay? So they don't try to categorize those tweets, like what kind of help. So here, I just mentioned that they have the people who are looking for help, then there are people who are looking, who are basically volunteers. So like, people are saying there are the boards, and then people who are looking for board, they can match these things. So this is how they have done. So they have performed some, of course, validation. So they have 1,000 tweets, and they have labeled them as the rescue or non-rescue. 70% of the data is for training, and the rest used for the test. Okay? And as you see that the results are not that great, so they have compared the logistic regression, the KNN, cards, SVM, so this is the decision model. This is the precision, and this is how we define, right? True positive divided by false positive. Recall as measure, and then you see that the accuracy in some model is really very low. They have also talked a little bit about how to do the scheduling, so I'll not go into the work just for you in case you're interested. So what's my contribution in this work? Here's the work I'm doing. The first thing, we are trying to develop a multi-headed binary classifier to classify the tweets into 6 different classes. That's our objective. Can we do that from all these tweets which we have collected correctly into the FEMA defined classifier? And of course, we are using some deep learning models, and we have come up with our own models. So we have used a unique machine learning pipeline, and we have used everything possible to classify. And you'll see that we have used many tools.